Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this first-time Gravel Riders webinar for the Gralloch Sportive 2025. My name's David Reeve. You may or may not have seen me in the past, up on the stage, maybe at the Tour of Cambridgeshire, and certainly at the Gralloch. I'll be taking you through the Gralloch Sportive this evening. We're going to be covering all the things happening over the weekend, and tonight's very much aimed at first-time gravel riders, whether you've entered the Gralloch or not. We're here to help you enjoy the adventure if we possibly can. If you've got any questions, put them in the question box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. All questions that are submitted are anonymous. We'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. Joining me and all of us today are three brilliant guests. Xan Crees, 2023 British Gravel Champion and the current British Cyclo-cross Champion. Clair Parfrey, founder of UK Women's Gravel Riders Group and the British Cycling Qualified Coach, and Malcolm Smith, Red On Sports Director and the co-founder of the Gralloch. So, why did we decide to start this Sportive? Well, 2025 is the first edition of the Gralloch Sportive. It's been created to complement the UCI Gravel World Series race. As organisers, we saw a gap for riders who wanted to experience the course without any pressure of actually racing. And a Sportive, as you know, offers a way for newcomers to gravel or those not interested in competition to ride at their own pace. Galloway Forest Park offers some of the best gravel in Britain, and we wanted an event where riders could truly savour a landscape and enjoy the journey. The focus is on the experience, it's on personal goals and community. It's not about results or podiums. Claire, why do you think having a non-sportive, non-competitive Sportive is as part of the Gralloch weekend is so important for the gravel community? Claire, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's important because there are quite a few people who don't really want to race or don't feel they're fit enough perhaps to race. But also I think it's a really good opportunity to experience the event and the scenery, see the scenery and the trails before perhaps racing next time.
Yeah, it's a good way of getting out there and just taking in the atmosphere. I mean, it may not be for you, but it may be something you really want to take up. I think that's what happened to a lot of us in our cycling careers in the past. Certainly happened to me for mountain biking. Let's have a look at the weekend itself then. This is an exclusive first look at the Sportive schedule, and it includes a lot of activities and workshops on Saturday, the day ahead of the Sportive. So this is what you can expect if you're there the day before. There's a mechanic workshop starting at 11:30. It kicks off shortly after the final UCI race is set off from the start. It's ahead of the UCI Elite Men's finish. Now, the workshop's designed to cover the basics of bike maintenance to support riders taking part in a Sportive, regardless of which route you're taking. It's a real hands-on practice experience. These sound like very basic things, but you'd be amazed how many times they'll come in useful, or in fact, how many riders who just want to experience something really don't know much about them. They include fixing a puncture, even putting your chain back on and replacing a tyre. You may think it's all easy. There's a certain way of doing it, makes it a lot nicer, that's for sure. All participants in the workshops will be of a similar experience level, so it'll be creating a friendly, sort of no-pressure learning environment. And remember, there'll be no silly questions whatsoever, so it's just an opportunity to learn the pros and cons and pick up useful tips. The mechanics team will walk you through the basics of the tech boxes. They'll share recommended equipment. They'll give you last-minute tips on how to ensure your bike is ready. They'll give you general advice and support as well. By 4 p.m. after the races have returned, we get the gravel captain meet and greet. This is an informal time for you to meet gravel captains. We'll talk a little bit more about gravel captains as we go along, but it'll be your chance to meet them and connect with others who are starting in your group at the same time. If you're coming solo, and we always encourage you to do so, this is a great opportunity to meet those fellow riders on the day. Gravel captains will become much clearer later on, but if you've ever been on a long distance sportive, then you'll know that ride captains are an essential part of having a good experience. The Sportive ride Shakeout then sets off from the Adventure Village and heads out through Cali Woods to the Solway coast, showcasing some absolutely stunning views and ending up on the local beaches. It's only a relaxed 16-kilometer social spin. There's a nice mix of gravel and tarmac. It's ideal for settling those sort of last-minute nerves. It's also a perfect way to get into your gravel mindset and enjoy the beauty of the park for the first time if you've not been there. You can meet fellow riders, start building some of those gravel friendships before Sunday, and believe you me, you'll be pleased you had some friends out there as well. It's always good to be riding with people. And it'll let some of the amazing ride captains who we've already got penciled in ride out there just for fun, to make that connection and set the tone for a great weekend. Next up at 6 p.m, join us for after the Shakeout ride for an inspiring, and it will be inspiring, adventure talk with the gravel legends Marcus Stitz and Maddie Nutt. There'll be absolutely incredible stories. I've done interviews with them, I don't know, for the last 3 or 4 years at various events. In fact, I think that's me on the far left of the slideshow shot there, interviewing Marcus and other riders. It's a chance to hear their inspiring stories, to spark ideas and start dreaming about gravel adventures. It's not just about the sportive and the racing. You can have one hell of a time on a gravel bike anywhere in the world. And at 7 p.m, after that talk, we'll finish up with, it's the Gralloch quiz night. We all got our heads together and thought this would be a fun way to get a few laughs, some friendly competition, some exciting prizes from our event partners, and a way to wind down after your ride out to the coast, meet some more riders and get into the Gralloch spirit before the Sportive actually on the Sunday. So we mentioned gravel captains. Let's have a look at what the gravel captain is. They're there to support you as a rider throughout the entire Sportive experience. That's before, during and after the ride. You'll have seen us announcing a few of them on Instagram over the past few weeks. The team is made up of some mix of experienced riders and first-timers. There's some like Maddie Nutt, who we mentioned earlier, Xan Crees, who's here with us tonight, and Chris Hall, who will have ridden the UCI race the day before. And there's others like Emma Clark, who'll be riding the Sportive for the first time along the participants. The role of gravel captain is to be friendly, approachable and helpful, whether it's offering encouragement, sharing tips, answering questions, or even snapping a photo or two if that's what you like at the pit stop. They're there to create a positive, inclusive atmosphere and make sure everyone gets the most out of their day. Final groupings and the pace options are still going to be finalized, but expect a range of relaxed rides for those chasing a personal challenge. Xan, what are you most looking forward to being a gravel captain on the Gralloch, do you think?
Well, one thing I'm certainly looking forward to is, having always raced the Gralloch, is actually being able to ride the course and enjoy it and kind of take in the scenery, because when you're racing, you don't really get the chance to kind of stop and enjoy the view. So that's going to be great. But I also just love a social race and a social ride. So I'm just really looking forward to actually getting to ride with a group of people, kind of chatting to different people, from finding out where they're from, kind of how they've got there. And yeah, I'm just excited really to talk to a lot of people, hopefully, and ride with a lot of different people that I don't normally get the chance to ride with.
No, it's one of the great things about gravel riding and off-road riding in general, actually. It's got this sort of amazing crossover between race and relaxation, and that's what being a gravel captain allows you to do. But I'm sure people will gain a lot from you and like riding along with you. Claire, just a quick question for you then. Do you have got any advice for anybody who's riding a gravel event like this for the first time?
I think the biggest thing is to remember that you're here or there to have fun, ride with a smile and have fun, chat to people, as Xan was saying. Remember, that to ride it as you want to ride, just because somebody else is riding it faster or riding and you feel you want to walk, for example, just have fun, ride it for yourself. Don't be ashamed to walk if you need to. That's a big thing for me.
The amount of times I've pushed bikes up hills is I don't even want to go into that. It's just,
exactly.
Yes, it does happen, and don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. Let's have a look at the event village where we're all going to be based over the weekend. This, as it says, is the beating heart of the Gralloch weekend. That is the park that we are based in, right in the centre of Gatehouse of Fleet. It's where all the action takes place over the weekend. It really is the buzzing hub of all activities all week long. That's where the stages are, presentation starts and finishes. We have an expo area featuring some of the top brands. There's shop gear, there's tech apparel and more. There's demo bikes as well to have a go at. There's a huge variety of food and drink options. They'll keep you fueled and refreshed before and after the event. Live music on Friday and Sunday. We're trying to aim for that festival weekend feel. We had some fantastic music last time out. We were up there. It was really, really good. Lots of local bands coming up and playing, which was terrific. Free bike cleaning with Fenwicks. Remember, keep your bike spotless. Don't turn up with a bike that hasn't been washed. You'll be amazed what goes wrong. Registration and event info, which is right at the heart of the event village. They are your go-to for any sort of support. It also hosts the UCI race podium ceremonies on Saturday afternoon. Kids races take place here. All the family fun is based in the event village, and the camping is available just around the corner, really, really close to all the action. It is dog friendly, and Nala, my retriever, Nala the gravel dog, thank you, Xan, for clapping hands. She'll be there as usual, might even get up on stage this time around. It's the central base for everything, the event village. It's going to be an exciting weekend based there. Well, we're right in the heart of the Galloway Forest Park. Before we get to some of the route details, let's just find out a little bit more about why we chose this amazing venue. Gatehouse of Fleet in south west Scotland is chosen as the home of the Gralloch. It's an absolutely stunning location, and it has world-class gravel terrain, and I really mean that. It is absolutely world-class. It is as good, if not better, than many other races around the world and many other routes you will want to ride. The area includes the Galloway Forest Park, and it does lie within the Galloway and Southern Ayrshire UNESCO Biosphere Area, which it has a huge environmental importance to this particular area. Riders are going to experience everything from the Solway Firth coastline right to the dramatic Galloway Hills, and it's such an unspoiled area. It's named after it was named the UK's first dark sky park in 2009. It is in fact one of the best places to see stars in the world. There's even just down the road in Kirkcudbright, there's even a planetarium. It's that good for seeing stars. We will ask all riders, we can say it now, and we will hear me saying it on the day when we're there, please leave no trace at all when you're there. Take everything with you and help us to protect this extraordinary place that we're going to be riding in. Right, let's down to the business end of things. Here are the routes. This then is the long route. It's called the Stag, and it's the same as the UCI Gravel World Series route. It covers 111 kilometers and has 1,761 meters of climbing. We're going to go through it section by section, just so you get some sort of flavor of what you'll be expecting when you get there. Section 1, for the first 30 kilometers, it's just the same as the Fawn route. You'll roll out of the event village through Gary's Park. It's a nice little warm-up section. And then the Stag route tackles most of its climbing pretty early on, to be honest. It starts with Fuffolk Hill, which is a pretty firm gravel climb that leads you to the highest point on the ride. It says it's only 281 meters, but just take it steady. A lot of people, whether it's racing, inexperienced racers, or sportive riders that are doing it for the first time, they go out hard because they think, well, this isn't too bad. You get to the top of the Fuffolk Hill, and then you realize you've got another sort of 90 kilometers to go. So, yeah, just take it nice and easy. Settle into a rhythm. Don't burn out too soon. After that, there's a flowing descent down through the trees and the plantations. Expect a couple of short climbs, but not too much. And there's a brief bit of tarmac before you hit Kennick Hill. A 3-kilometer climb at 3%. That's a little bit rougher, and you've got to look out for your line a little bit more then. At the base of the hill, there's a 5-kilometer section of tarmac to recover before reaching the first of the OGT-sponsored feed stations, and that will, of course, be fully stocked with drinks and snacks. Picking the right line through that bumpier gravel can save you a lot of energy. and it'll give you confidence, a real boost if this is your first time out. So especially on Kennick Hill and Fuffolk Hill, just take it easy, pick your line and get going through there. Xan, if you're choosing the right line on gravels and it starts bumpy, what's your advice for first time riders trying to navigate this sort of terrain?
Yes, there's a lot of sections of the course that are quite bumpy. I would always recommend trying to find the flatter and less rough section. Now, a lot of the course, you can kind of tell where vehicles have driven, and they'll normally be like these two streams are actually okay. Typically, if you aim for those, you'll find you get a smoother ride, particularly up the first climb, because that can be a nightmare for punctures. So rather than trying to ride on the really rough stuff in the middle, you stick to those lines, you'll find yourself probably having a little bit of an easier time. And then for the descents, typically stick to the wider line, because if you get like a wider line around a corner, it allows you to carry a bit more speed and it's not quite as sharp or as difficult. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Xan. That goes for every sort of gravel, actually. Just try and keep those lines as smooth as you can all the way through. I think it's similar to mountain biking. If you don't look ahead, see if you can look ahead. Don't be looking 2 meters ahead of you, because you'll miss what's coming up, especially if you're traveling at any sort of speed. So try and pick that flowing line. Thanks, Xan. So section 2, then let's move on to that. This is roughly 30 kilometers to about the 67 kilometer mark. So after that first feed station, there's a really nice fast run downhill. It's got a solid surface, but watch out for a little steep climb. It's only 1 kilometer, but it is 8% during the end of that, and that kicks you back into to gear again, ready for the route that winds beautifully then between the forest and the lock views. It passes Lochs Skerrow, Stroan and Ken, but there are a few punchy ramps and plenty of rhythm to be had in between those. And then it's on to Slaughter Hill. I wonder why it's called that. It's a tough climb, chunky gravel. It's a midway sort of plateau part of the event, and it's a pretty technical descent with a very tight right-hander at the bottom. This is probably the most difficult part of the course, I would say. Technically, take it easy on the descent. It's really not worth taking any risks at this particular point. After that descent, you're going to hit Raiders Road. That's a lovely scenic stretch beside the River Dee. It's beautiful rolling terrain, and it's got the second of our OGT feed zones in it. And if you've survived the climb and descent of Slaughter Hill, you might want to stop off there to refuel and reset for a final leg. There are also toilets at that feed zone. Claire, that middle section's got a little bit of everything. How do you stay properly fueled and hydrated and ready for that last effort, or indeed efforts like Slaughter Hill?
I think the main thing is to plan and to think about your hydration and fuel way before the event. I tend to think that I will eat something, even if it's just a fig roll, every 45 minutes or so, just so that I'm keeping on top of it. I'm not becoming hungry. And the same applies with drinking. Drink little and often, so you're not becoming overly thirsty, because if you're thirsty, then you it's more difficult to come back from that. So I think just planning it and having a variety of bits and pieces to eat that are easily accessible, I think that'd be my way forward with that.
Apart from all the great stuff that's going to be on offer at the feed zones, do you have any particular little nuggets, little favourites you like to stick in your back pocket?
I like to have a variety, not just all sweet stuff. I like to have something savoury. Comes back to fig rolls again. I do like a fig roll on there. But I've tried those OT. It's OTG, isn't it? The little squares that haven't got any wrappers on them. They are really good. So they're definitely worth trying. Yeah,
definitely worth trying. In fact, I've tried them recently as well. And to be honest, I spent about 30 years eating dried figs and not fig rolls. But I think I'd rather go with an OGT bar, to be honest. Right, let's move on to section 3 before this becomes a culinary discussion rather than a cycling discussion. Kilometers 68 to 87 then. So after a short stretch of tarmac heading out after the feed zone, the route turns south You retrace your routes on the opposite side of the River Dee this time. This is the furthest part of the first point of the ride, but it's no point relaxing just yet. You'll know if you've done this sort of thing before. There's still a long way to come. There's rolling sections here. There's quite a few punchy climbs, so just relax into it. Don't take it too hard. You know you've still got a long way to go then. As that ride through the section progresses, the climbs get a bit longer, and this is where you really need to sort of start just pacing yourself, start focusing towards the end of your ride. You're coming towards the end of your ride. You just need to pace yourself through this bit. And the top of one of those longer efforts is another of those OGT feed stations. You can catch your breath, take on some more fuel, maybe get some momentum for that final leg. And then once you get there, you'll be treated to one of the most stunning views on the course. This looks out over Loch Gralloch, and the gravel trail winds down from there to the finish. Claire, do you think, how do you deal with it mentally when you get to this stage? Maybe this is your first Sportive. You may be a bit knackered by this point. How do you approach it mentally?
For me, I always try and break it down into chunks. So if I was thinking like I'd got, let's say 20k to go, I wouldn't think of it as 20k. I'd try and think of it as 4 lots of 5k, because I think that's easy. You can just tick them off, and then you can perhaps plan to do 5k and have a little snack or something, or just to try and break it up into those chunks, I think is vital, really.
What about you, Xan? How do you feel as though when you're training or when you're racing, and you feel that pressure coming on a bit mentally? How do you deal with it?
I think one of the main things is definitely, I would say, is control the controllable. So you might end up like missing a session. That's fine. Like, think about what you kind of focus on instead. And also just try and stick to the things that are going to help you in terms of whatever your goal is. So whether it's a case of you want to get round, make sure you're doing like quite good, well, when you can fit it in, many hours on the bike if you can, to make it easier. If you want those climbs to be easier, make sure you're really trying to practice those climbs, getting lots of like hill reps in at home to just try and make that feel a bit easier when it comes to the day of the event.
Thanks very much, Sam. Right then, well, if you've managed to take that on board and you've got through this middle section, let's have a look at section 4, which really is the run down to the finish. This is from 88 kilometers through to the finish at 111 kilometers. You go around that bend and have that fantastic view of Loch Gralloch, soak in as much of that romantic and remote beauty as you possibly can, then settle into your steady rhythm, and then you've got to go across this undulating plateau towards the finish. It's 18 kilometers to go. This is probably the most technical single descent of the day that isn't, preceded by a nasty climb. It's 4 kilometers. It loses 150 meters on loose, very chunky gravel. And this is another section where you really, really have to pick your line. It's absolutely crucial. Again, take it easy. It's not a race. Slow and steady is what will get you home well and with maximum enjoyment. At the base of that climb, there's a narrow bridge crossing that brings you across to the impressive big water of Fleet Viaduct. There it is on the left-hand side. That's where the British Gravel Championships finished last year, just almost by that gate on the left-hand side. The landmark here is the signal, really, that all the gravel's behind you. And then the terrain shifts onto tarmac with some final nice, fast-flowing road sections. There's a steep drop and a few short climbs that'll take you back to Gatehouse of Fleet. I would say here from experience, especially if you're absolutely shattered by this point, you might think this is great. I'm going to freewheel down here as fast as I want to get to the finish. If you're tired, this is where the sheep pop out and you don't know them. They are there, you can see them, or there's cars coming up the other way, or whatever it happens to be. It's a pretty narrow road. And just bear in mind that freedom and wonderful feeling of wheeling towards the finish, just be careful on the way down there as well. Last kilometre, of course, yours to enjoy. Soak up the atmosphere. You're running back into Gatehouse of Fleet. You cruise into the town, which is absolutely fabulous little place. I'm sure you'll have discovered it the night before. And hopefully you'll be there to pick up your finisher's medal and celebrate an absolutely unforgettable day on the Stag. If you are not doing the Stag, you will be doing the Fawn, which is the short route. And here it is. It covers quite a lot of the same ground, actually, the longer route, but significantly shorter. It's only 53 kilometers long and 835 meters of climbing. So it's about half and half, really. Let's have a look at section 1 then. It starts out as a really relaxed rollout from the event village in Gatehouse of Fleet, heading out of Gary's Park on smooth tarmac for the first 2 kilometers. Nice for just gently warming up. And then at 2 kilometers, the road starts to climb. There's just a shade under 5 kilometer tarmac ascent, and you're going up 165 meters at that point. It's steady, it's nice and rideable, it's perfect for getting into rhythm. It's a really, really nice route out. You can see it there on the left. Really, really pretty good. Remember, this isn't a race. Ease into the climb, pace yourself, and enjoy the surrounding. After all, that's what you're there for. As you climb up, the views open up behind you. Fantastic dramatic sights of Solway Firth on the clear days, even right the way through to the Isle of Man. Do take the time, if you want to pull over and look a quick glance behind you or take the scene in, it's fine. Remember, it's not a race. You can stay in and enjoy as much of the view as you like. At the top is the first of the feed zones. Now, before the Fawn will join the route of the Stag, right the way through to the last 20 kilometres. So section 2 then. It's from 21 kilometres to 30 kilometres, ending up at Loch Skerrow. You can see that. This is where the Fawn joins the Stag for the final 33 kilometres, giving you a chance to see some of your longer route friends you might have made the day before. See how they're getting on. You're now right in the middle of the Galloway Forest Park. You can see it's by the slide on the left. It's a full-on plantation section. This, I think they'll find that sick as spruce, he says, as my other job, doing forestry. You're deep in the Galloway Forest Park. The terrain's a bit more demanding now. There's longer climbs, increased efforts. Remember, get used to riding, as Xan was saying, in some of this mixed terrain. Even short rides off-road, can build up your bit of confidence and your bike handling skills. So after a steady climb, you're going to reach the second and final feed station. It's a great place to reset, refuel, and get ready for that final push. They'll all be very well marked. You won't possibly miss them, as you can see. Great big yellow sign saying pit stop. Make sure you take advantage of them whenever you want to. Just beyond that feed zone, the route reveals that stunning view again, high on the top of Loch Gralloch, offering a perfect pause point, and get your cameras out and enjoy it. Section 3 then. This is the last section on the Fawn. Final 22 kilometres are absolutely identical to the Stag route, and you'll get to enjoy some of those stunning views on the way down as well. Remember, you'll have that little section of rough downhill. So the same applies to your route, as we said with the Stag. Just be a little bit careful. And, of course, the run back into Gary's Park as well. Those are our 2 routes then. The longer Stag route at 111 kilometres and the shorter Fawn route at 53 kilometres. Well, now you know what you're in for. How are we going to look after you for the weekend to make sure that you're going to have a great time? I'm going to hand over for a brief moment, then we'll say thankfully, to Malcolm Smith, race director, who's going to take you through some of the things we're going to be doing to making your weekend fantastic.
Great. Thanks for that, David. Yes, it's this stuff that we're going to just run through briefly is the stuff that ordinarily you're not going to be noticing or coming into contact with. However, we're really keen that people feel confident about being out there in the wilderness, because as you can see from the images, this is real wilderness. So we wanted to provide a level of reassurance to know that wherever you are out there, we've got our eyes on you and we're looking after you. At the very back of the ride, we will have a fleet of sweep vans. So if you need to stop and get in, either because it's your legs or your bike that have given up, not a problem. Sweep vans will then, if you get picked up on the first half of the course, you'll be dropped off around about halfway after the second feed station. where you can then, we've got a minibus waiting then to take you back down to the start and finish area and gatehouse of Fleet. So there's always a way of getting you back to the finish along with your bike. What most people don't realise with an event like this is because we've got so many people out in the forest, and we need thorough processes to be able to keep an eye on you. So we collect data from out in the forest. We've got 25 timing checkpoints, for example, which allows us to you'll all have electronic live timing chips. So we'll know where you are within a few kilometers or thereabouts. And all of that data then comes back into a control room where I've got a team reported to a control room manager who keep an eye on that data. And that data might also include people ringing in on a dedicated telephone line or WhatsApping in. If you're out on the course, then you will already, no doubt, have entered the emergency telephone number into your mobile phone. We recommend you take your phones with you. Then you can either text or WhatsApp or call in the event you need some help or are in distress. Another interesting point as well to make a note of is that we've got all of the signs out on the course have got identifiers on the back of them. So in the event you don't quite know where you are, but you can see a sign, go to that sign, make contact with us through WhatsApp or telephone. And you'll be able, if you tell us what the number is on the back of the sign, we'll be able to identify precisely where you are. That's if you're not stood by one of the 25 timing points. That is, we've got we've got a team with their eyes on you all the time. We've got a team out there picking you up in the event you need picking up or being supplied with spares and the likes. In terms of spares, because you'll have all been to the mechanics briefing the day before, you'll know how to plug punctures, change inner tubes and all that sort of stuff, and how to pump tires up, no doubt. Well, we've also got 10, we call them tech boxes. They're boxes of supplies out there around the course every few kilometers. So in the event that you have run out of spares or you've forgotten something and you need something, invariably the basics will be available to you free of charge in those boxes. They'll be highly visible by the way, and they'll always be one of the feed stations too, along with a track pump. We've got 3 rest stops out there for you that are all manned, so that in the event that you need assistance or just as someone to chat to, not that should be an issue given the number of people that are going to be riding the Sportive, then we'll have a friendly team operating the feed stations for you. And then finally, we've also got a bunch of marshals out there. All the teams out there, whether they're marshalling or in sweep vans or on feed stations, then they're all connected with cellular radios. These are very special radios that we've identified and have tested out there in the most demanding areas of the forest, so that if you need to get a message back to base, you can speak to one of the marshals or ask someone at the feed station to make contact with the control room, and all of the radios that we have will have been tested to make sure that we will get connections back into the control room, again, to keep an eye on everyone. And I think, finally, of course, if you need a loo, there will be a loo at the second feed station. And I think on that note then, David, if I just hand back over to you.
Thanks, Malcolm. It really is about sort of wrapping around the riders, wrapping around you as a rider, making your weekend feel enveloped, so to speak, giving you the confidence that you're never out there alone, even if you're sort of surrounded by a load of people. If you're having a bit of a tough time, there are people there and there is help for you. And those tech boxes are very useful, by the way, believe me. Right. Let's have a look maybe at something completely different. Let's have a look at some training tips. It's a lovely Lovely shot of the viaduct there. That's almost at the finish, last 4K or so. It's a beautiful. If the weather's as good as that, it'll be absolutely gorgeous. We've got Xan and Clair, of course. Xan, the current British Cyclo-cross champion. Clair, a British Cycling accredited and qualified coach. Let's have a little bit of a chat with them. Let's have a think with Xan. Let's have a chat with you. It's pretty close now. It's got 2 months to go. How would you be approaching training in this final stretch if you were riding for the first time?
Well, pretty much what I'd be doing is similar to what I am doing. Obviously, given that my cross season's just ended, I've only just got back on a bike, so I've pretty much only just started training for the Gralloch. So it's a lot of where you can fit it in, so make the most of the weekend. So if you can get those slightly longer endurance rides in, that would be one of the best things to do, because you want to be able to cope with how long this ride is going to be, particularly if you're doing the full length route and doing the Stag. Other than that, what you kind of want to do is kind of preparing. So if you haven't got like your gravel bike out or don't ride it regularly, trying to build in some gravel rides just to get yourself familiar with it, because it is going to feel different. And also you want to get it out before the day of the event, or you'll find it doesn't work. And that's the last thing you want to happen on the day of the Sportive. So, yeah.
Claire, what advice would you give? I mean, there will be people here who do a lot of gravel riding at the weekends. They're out with their friends, they're out with their mates. It has been the up and coming place to ride, and you know why. It's fantastic riding off road. But what if you haven't got that much gravel around you? What if you haven't got that much opportunity to fit that training in? What would you recommend?
Where I live in Warwickshire at the moment, you're very hard pushed to find any gravel. It's under at least 3 inches of mud. So I would just say, get out there on any bike, road bike, mountain bike, anything, and get some hours in. Like Dan was saying, get some longer rides in. If you can get onto some gravel, if you can find somewhere that you can go, do that as well. But if you can't, just get some distance in. I think that's the main thing. Maybe try and get some, if you're on the road, perhaps try and do some high resistance intervals, so you're getting some leg strength ready for the punchier climbs. But I think that the key thing is just getting that time on the bike up at the moment for me.
High load resistance. That's the old Cadell Evans trick, wasn't it? It was stick it in the biggest gear you've got on your ride, and then ride up a hill in it. And just keep pushing. It's the equivalent to pushing loads of weights. But there we go. Xan, what top tips? I mean, you've got so much experience, and I know you have the head of a racer on, but top tips for those people approaching gravel for the first time. The flat bits are okay. What about the climbs on a slightly loose surface, especially if it is particularly dusty? Climbing not so much. But what about descent? We talked about it earlier. How do you practice for descending, especially on the roads around the Gralloch, some of which have got small gravel particles, some of which are whacking great big chunky things?
Yeah, certainly. The descents are very varied when you come up to the Gralloch. One of my top tips typically for descents in general is try not to panic and do it at your own pace. Don't worry if the person next to you is absolutely flying down. Go at your own pace and what feels comfortable for you. In terms of practicing, even if you just have one descent near you, practice it and just gradually try and take it faster and faster and get that little bit more comfortable on it. Obviously, the further out you go, the more descents you'll be able to find, and then you can start practicing on those and kind of build yourself up. If it is quite intimidating right now, find a smaller one, start there, build your confidence up and just take it step by step. Don't feel like you need to go down something that you feel is horrendous right now. Although, whilst some of the descents in the Gralloch course are a little bit loose, nothing is too severe. You should be able to control your speed and be absolutely fine. And again, look for those lines that are slightly less loose and a little bit more hard pack, and you'll find those a little bit easier too. Just
a quick one more from me. I'm not wanting to preempt anybody's questions, but this one comes up all the time, so it's worth flagging up at this point. Was to ask Malcolm as well. Malcolm is a rider of more mature years like myself, and Xan as a flat-out racer. Tyre choice up here, because it does have quite an effect, doesn't it? We know a lot of people ride with traditional tyres and tubes up here, just if they want that. It's not as light, maybe not as fast, but it can be a little bit more reliable. Xan, first of all, as an experienced gravel rider and champion, what would you be picking up the Gralloch?
Yeah, I would definitely try and look for a tyre that is a little bit thicker or a little bit more reinforced. So ideally one with a little bit more tread will probably give you that little bit extra puncture protection. You can also obviously use tyre inserts. That's been recommended to me a lot around the Gralloch, because then if you do puncture, you still have a decent amount of pressure in there. And I personally have always chosen to run tubeless, because then if you just get a small cut, then it will seal itself and it'll be absolutely fine. I appreciate some riders do quite like the tube setup because they can fix it. But I would recommend, if you're comfortable with it, tubeless will save you a lot of faff, particularly if you get good with a plug tool.
Malcolm, what about you as a man who's ridden time trials, road, mountain bikes, and now a gravel rider? What would you be choosing as setup?
Yeah, I'd have to concur with Xan, absolutely on the giving away a little bit of weight and durability on tyres, in order that you'll have less go wrong with them in the event. I think that there's my preference, having picked up a lot of cuts on tyres and done a lot of miles recceing this route to develop the event. I had least problems when riding tubeless like Xan. One recommendation I would make to everyone is, when going and having a look at the mechanic session on Saturday afternoon, if you've not had chance to use tire plugs, get the mechanics to show you how to do it in that training session, and even get to feel it yourself. That's a really useful tip, because you can avert an awful lot of pain and suffering by paying attention to indicators like getting a squirt of sealant in the eye from your front wheel. Meaning that you've got a hole somewhere, which means you stop, you can plug it, put a bit of air in it, and you're off and running again, rather than getting down onto the rims and needing to sort of rely on inserts, as was saying there. I think I would personally, so I'm a lot heavier than I used to be, so I'm 88 kilograms at the moment, and would be favouring a wider tyre, probably a 48mm tyre, and I have a preference, maybe from the road background, of going a little bit harder, a little bit more pressures. I'll probably be on sort of 38, probably 38 in the PSI in probably both tyres, to be honest. That will give me just about enough bite into the gravel that we see, but also it would also mean that the tyres aren't going to burp. I think there's a high tendency for people to go very low pressure. They did in the first year of the Gralloch, and with the larger lumps that you were referencing earlier on, David, I think a lot of people burped their tyres and lost air, and then had to stop and either reseal or put air into them. I think probably, having made the right selection of tyre, you're also then into a sort of a Formula One motor racing type scenario of tyre management, and what I have found is not letting the bike run too quickly on descent means that you can control the passage. You can stick to the flatter areas of the track, as Xan was saying earlier, and avoid the bigger, sharper pieces of gravel, which are the ones that do damage when you hit them at speed. So after having selected the right tyres, manage them as carefully as you can, particularly on descents.
Thank you, Malcolm. That's fairly comprehensive, I have to say. One thing I would go on the back of that saying is, those tech boxes out there, have they got tubeless tyres in, or are they tubes ready to put back in your tyres?
So in the tech boxes, there will be a few of the tech boxes that will have spare tubeless tyres in them, and they'll be the ones at the feed stations, so that there'll be a kind of hand a tyre in and get one back type situation. In the main, we put sealant, some plugs, tyre levers, and inner tubes in those, David.
Brilliant. So I guess there'll be people riding for the first time who've actually never changed a tyre or never used an inner tube. It's a new generation. So things to learn on the mechanics side of things on the Saturday. Right. I'm going to be quiet for now and start pulling up some of the questions and questions that we've been sent on the chat board. If the lovely Matilda would put some up, I'll read them out and we'll direct them to the right people. Have we got any questions that have come up? I'm not seeing anything come up on the chat at the moment. There we are. Hang on a second. Emma asking, are mechanics on hand to help in the tech boxes or just the gear? Well, I think the answer to that is probably just be you, Malcolm, isn't it? It's just yourself.
Yes, that's fine. Most of the tech boxes will be unmanned, so I'm afraid you will be having to fix things by yourself. But you must remember also that this isn't a race, and there are lots of other people around who I'm sure will be more than happy to stop and give you a hand if you're struggling. As with the way we've set this up is for it to be inclusive and to be friendly, and so stopping and giving someone a hand is a really cool thing to do if that is what's required.
Josie Woodward saying, what's the steepest climb and how long is it? I'm a little worried that my lowest gear won't be low enough for some of the climbs I'll be facing. Well, I suppose there's two answers to that. Malcolm can answer the first one, which is how long it is and how steep it is. But we'll do the second part of it first, is get off and walk. It's fine. Nobody's worried about it. And it gives you a good chance to have a look around you as well. Malcolm, how long and how steep is that climb?
Yeah, the climbs are that there. It's very rare that we have a long ramp, a long ramp that's steep, more than 100 meters or so. I mean, there's a lot of draggy climbs in this, as you could see from the maps and from the earlier conversation. I think that the worst ramps have sort of tipping points in them of about 8%, but ordinarily they're 3, 4, 5% climbs as a general rule. So therefore not walls that you might get in a ski resort, for example, which then send shivers down your spine. There's none of that.
No, none at all. Another question from Simon Jones. Can you use an e-gravel bike on the Fawn?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the whole idea behind the Sportive, and to reiterate the point Claire was making earlier on. It's about giving people the chance to experience the environment, giving people the chance to enjoy the company, the companionship, and so absolutely. If you've got an e-gravel bike, more than happy to use it.
Somebody's written a question for both Xan and Claire here. What did you most enjoy about the event last year? We'll start with Claire.
I enjoyed the wilderness, to be honest. There's not many places where you can be that far away from buildings and traffic, and I loved it. I loved the wilderness. I loved hearing cuckoos, just the scenery. It really just was fantastic. That's the bit I enjoyed most.
Xan, what's your abiding memory of last year?
For me personally, it was the event village after the event. I think at the time, like when you're racing, like it's really tough and honestly, when you're racing, it was really tough and really hard. But once you get into that event village, you can really enjoy the atmosphere, have a good time. And when you reflect on it, you're like, wow, I did that. That was great. I had a great time and I'm really proud of myself. Obviously, Sportif will be a little bit different. It's more a case of we can go at a enjoyable, quite nice pace and actually take in the scenery. So that's what I'm going to be looking forward to this year.
I've said it the last couple of years when we've been gravel racing, and Xan, you've heard me say it before many times. Gravel racing these days is very much like mountain biking was in the late 80s and early 90s. Everybody mixes in, whether it be pros or elite riders or first timers, and everybody has a fantastic time. And so please do come along and just enjoy the whole festival atmosphere, because that's what it is. It's a festival on two wheels, and that's what we're trying to promote. Gavin Spence asked something that's related to that. What time would you suggest arriving at the event, Malcolm? Malcolm, you're muted, which some would say is a good thing, but there we go.
Thank you, David. Yes. Look, this is going to be a great weekend. I mean, I'd get there personally as early as you possibly can. The event village is opening early Friday afternoon, and there's going to be an awful lot to do with shakedown rides and just getting involved. We've got the music festival on Friday evening. So if you've got the time to join the Gralloch for the whole weekend, I'd absolutely say do it. If you're a bit more time stretched, as I know a lot of people are, then certainly try and get there for Saturday morning for the mechanic session. So certainly by sort of like 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Question from Elliot. If I enter the Stag, can I move to the Fawn on the day, or vice versa?
Yes, absolutely right. If you make the decision ahead of being out there, because we know things are dynamic and people might make decisions to do a different route while they're out there, and that's fine as well. If you make your mind up ahead of time, if you could let registration tent know, because we won't be then looking out for you in the control room and getting worried if we've not seen you pass a control point we were expecting you to go past. So that would be great if you could, but not a problem if you make your decision while you're out there. You might be enjoying it that much, you booked onto the Fawn and you want to do the Stag. That's fine.
Just while you're on, Malcolm, another one from Smithy. Are all the roads closed, or are there cars on the road?
So for the race, all of the roads, all the tarmac, the public highways are closed, and we've got we've got exclusive access to the tracks in the forest. However, animals and wild campers don't tend to necessarily respect that level of exclusivity. For the Sportive, we haven't got the tarmac roads are open. But we do put warning signs out for cars. And with respect to the gravel tracks, you'll get as much exclusivity as they do in the race. Because it's such a wilderness place, there are very few people out there. But you do have to pay attention to people who have been out there while camping, maybe have had a good time and are heading out of the forest, or animals. They
might even stop at the side of the road and cheer you on. It's been known in events at Gatehouse of Fleet before. It's worth mentioning at this point that for anybody who's never ridden in Scotland, a little bit of background: the rules for access are completely different, public access, than they are in England, which is why it allows us to have such fantastic gravel racing, because we can pick and have gone very thoroughly into picking the very best roads you can get in the UK. A couple of years ago, we had a lot of riders coming from the United States, some from Canada, all around Europe, people who've ridden professionally as gravel bike racers for a while, or are experienced gravel bike riders, maybe on an expedition footing. And to a man, pretty much everybody said this is the best gravel bike race in the world. May not be the longest, may not be the most established, but it is the most beautiful and the roads are the best. Xan, do you think that holds water, that claim? And that's just for the Sportive as well, because you're doing exactly the same stuff.
I do, and I genuinely think I've heard a lot of riders say very similar, particularly in the women's field. There's not many races where the women's field really gets their own separate race and a chance to be separate, either whether that's in a separate start wave or not have the men come through and interfere. So a lot of the women I've spoken to have really said that it's been great. The course is absolutely amazing, as you'll all get to find out soon, and it just creates such wonderful racing. So I would agree personally.
Here's a quick technical one for you. And Dan, here we go again. I'm running a Panaracer Gravel King SK TLC tyre at the moment. Do you think this is sufficient, or do I need something with a bit more tread, Xan?
I can't remember exactly this one, but I think this is the one I'm thinking of. You should be able to get away with it. I think it'll be fine. Whether it's the optimum choice is up to you and probably how comfortable you feel on gravel. If you are quite comfortable, then yes, by all means, definitely go ahead. If you want a little bit more grip to be a little bit more safe and have that little bit of extra resistance, then possibly like a tread with a little bit more. But again, tyres are all very personal choice, and it will also depend on the pressure you are running. Obviously, we'd recommend somewhere in the mid-range, so not right at the top end, because you'll have a really rough ride. If you go too low, you will increase the risk of punctures. Yeah, if that helps at all.
Yeah, well, I'd say it's a pretty good tyre for this course. It's a pretty robust tyre. It's not particularly, super lightweight. It's a good tyre. And if you've got a little bit of pressure in the tyres, you may bounce around a little bit more, but you'll be able to get through those chunky things. Lisa Cunningham says, are there any muddy body sections? Boggy sections? Muddy body sections. There'll be plenty of muddy body sections if it rains, but boggy sections, Malcolm, we've had to think about this in the past.
Yes, there are no boggy sections of the course at the moment. No, so failing or short of us having torrential rain, the course does dry really well anyway. Out by Loch Scarrow, that's probably where there will be soft ground if there's any at all.
Martin Calking saying, is 3 litres of water an appropriate quantity to carry with you on the Stag? Bearing in mind you've got 3 feed stations as well. Who would like to answer that one?
Yes.
Claire, what do you think?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think that would be ample, because you are going to be able to refill. Just and make sure you do refill. I use a backpack for drinking with a little tube that comes around the front, but I also carry 2 bottles as well. But yeah, 3 litres would be plenty, I think.
Xan, would you say 3 litres is enough? It sounds like an awful lot to me, but then again, I'm very old school.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the feed stations. And if you weren't going to stop and use a feed station, it's probably just about there on the limit, particularly depending how fast you're going. Typically, the recommendation is roughly, if you're intense exercise, like 1 litre an hour. So if you can get 500 to 750 in the hour, that will probably just about get you round. With the feed stations, there will be absolutely plenty.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. I think that's a good range of questions we've tackled. We're coming up to just about the hour for this webinar. We hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's made you feel a bit more relaxed, more confident and excited and prepared for the Gralloch. It's a weekend that has everything to offer you as a gravel bike rider or any sort of cyclist, to be honest. So remember, whether you're riding the Stag or the Fawn, it's not a race. It's an adventure, and we're here to support you every step of the way. If you haven't registered yet, now's the time. You can visit this is all one word, grallochgravel.com to secure your place. That's grallochgravel.com to secure your place. If you've still got any questions, that's no problem at all. Just email us at info@grallochgravel.com or send us a direct message on Instagram via @Gralloch Sportive or @Gralloch Gravel. You'll see us in May, at Gatehouse of Fleet. We can't wait to welcome you all there because it is the most fantastic weekend. We hope you're looking forward to it as much as we are. From me, David Reeve, and from Xan Crees and Clair Parfrey, from Malcolm Smith, and from the background team producing this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you there.